All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're not just looking at a man. We are going to dissect the sophisticated and, frankly, terrifying machine he built to accumulate and abuse power.
So this quote right here, it's really the key that unlocks this entire story. Power parasitism. You see, Epstein didn't create power out of thin air. No, he attached himself to it, kind of like a parasite. He used the prestige, the wealth, and the influence of others as a shield for his absolutely horrific crimes.
So the big question is, how on earth did he build this parasitic machine? Well, to really get it, we've got to break it down, piece by piece. And we're going to start with the one thing that made it all possible, the power source.
You know, every single criminal enterprise needs a bank, right? A way to move money around without setting off alarm bells. But Epstein, he didn't just have a bank. No, he had two of the biggest, most powerful banks in the entire world fueling his operations.
And we're not just talking about regular bank accounts here. This was the financial lifeblood of his trafficking network. For 15 years, think about that, 15 years, JP Morgan allegedly gave him this protective umbrella, letting him pull out millions in cash. And then, when they finally cut him loose, who steps in? Deutsche Bank. And get this, they knowingly took him on after he was already a registered sex offender. Just incredible.
So, what was the fallout? Well, this number you're seeing, $365 million. That's the total amount JP Morgan Chase eventually had to pay out in settlements. Settlements to the victims and to the U.S. Virgin Islands for their role in letting all of this happen.
And Deutsche Bank? $225 million. That's what they paid in fines and settlements for basically being his late-stage safe haven, when no other institution would touch him. That's a very steep price for looking the other way.
Okay, so the money was flowing. That was the fuel. Now, let's look at the machine's dark operating system. This was a network built on exploitation and, maybe most importantly, on control.
And this is where it gets really, diabolically clever. Look at how each of these components fed into the next. His so-called investing genius, that was just the facade, the entry ticket to get into these elite circles. He used that access, that cronyism, to commit his crimes, all while hiding behind a cloak of legitimacy. And then, the crimes themselves, they created the material for extortion, which gave him ultimate control. It made sure his powerful friends could never turn on him. It was a perfectly engineered, self-sustaining cycle of abuse.
And the heart of this whole operation? His private island, a place so notorious that the victims and even the locals had their own dark names for it. You have to understand, this wasn't just some luxury retreat. This was his headquarters, and it was allegedly rigged with hidden cameras, a system designed to turn powerful friends into permanent hostages.
For years, this machine just seemed completely invincible. It was protected by so much wealth and so many powerful connections. I mean, that 2008 plea deal he got, it was an absolute disgrace to the justice system. But then, things started to change. A combination of incredibly courageous investigative journalism and the testimony of incredibly brave victims finally led to his rearrest in 2019. And that's when the whole thing just imploded.
But maybe his most cunning tactic of all, the most brilliant piece of camouflage he used, was science. He laundered his reputation using the prestige of the scientific community.
This table really illustrates his strategy perfectly. He wasn't just donating to some random charity. No, he targeted the world's most respected academic institutions. Think about it. By funding programs at places like Harvard and MIT, by surrounding himself with literal pioneers in AI and genetics, he essentially bought himself an intellectual halo. It made him look less like a predator and more like a peer to the smartest people on the planet.
But let's be clear, this was not about advancing humanity. It was about elevating himself above it. His endgame, as sources have revealed, was this: terrifying fusion of eugenics and transhumanism. He actually had a plan to use his ranch in New Mexico to, and this is real, seed humanity with his own DNA. He was funding research into cryogenics and reversing aging. It was all part of this pathological pursuit of a God complex.
So it wasn't just academia. The machine's tentacles reached deep into the heart of big tech too. Newly released files show his connections to this world, a world that's obsessed with the very future he so desperately wanted to control.
And what did he do? He used the exact same playbook, the same one he used on Wall Street, the same one he used on academia.
He'd offer access, he'd offer status, he'd offer the allure of some deep intellectual debate. And in return, these titans of tech gave him the one thing he craved more than anything else: legitimacy.
But perhaps one of the most stunning revelations to come out of all these file dumps is this. At an absolutely critical time when funding for development was really scarce, Epstein's money funneled through one of his MIT initiatives actually helped pay the salaries of Bitcoin's core developers. Just let that sink in. His network is now directly linked to the very origins of crypto.
Okay, so here's the really crucial point in all this. Epstein, the man, is gone. But the criminal system he pioneered, this system of parasitic power, it didn't die with him. It learned from his mistakes, and it has evolved.
Just look at this comparison. Epstein 1.0, the man, his system relied on things like physical videotapes, big banks that could eventually be subpoenaed, and a central figure, him, who could be arrested. But Epstein 2.0, the system, it's so much faster, so much harder to trace, and way more resilient. It's using crypto and stablecoins for funding. It's using AI and deepfakes for blackmail instead of tapes. And instead of a private island, its hub is an encrypted digital fortress. It's a decentralized network with no single point of failure. It's truly a ghost in the machine.
And that brings us to the really chilling question, doesn't it? The whole world was obsessed with who was on his list, who was on the flight logs. But maybe that was the wrong question all along. Maybe the real question isn't about who flew on his plane back then. Maybe it's about what new, invisible networks are operating right now using the upgraded, terrifying tools that he could only have dreamed of.